Hi, I'm Lacey.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to Monster Soup and Creature Brews, the podcast where we talk about all things monster movies, big, small, creepy, or downright ridiculous.
From movie monsters to cryptids lurking in the shadows of folklore, we're here to explore them all. So kick back, grab a snack,
Or a drink.
and let's dive into some monster-filled mayhem.
Hello all, welcome back. This week's episode, we will be discussing the 2012 movie Grabbers. And to kick us off, Sam is going to go ahead and read the official real description.
When an island off the coast of Ireland is invaded by blood-sucking aliens, the heroes discover that getting drunk is the only way to survive.
Explain it badly. Pub crawl turns into survival strategy. That's it. Before we start doing the actual recap, Sam and I have decided that we're going to give the movies we watch an official rating, just because sometimes we really do make fun of a movie and we actually genuinely enjoy it. I think 1998 Godzilla is a good example of that. So for me, I actually give this movie an A-. I really enjoyed it. I think it's worth the watch. It's something I would definitely watch again. However, I wasn't crazy about the love angle that is in this movie. It didn't feel organic, and so that's why I'm giving it an A-.
It felt very forced. This should have been he goes in for a kiss and she's like, I just met you yesterday.
Right. We've known each other like 48 hours,
Yeah.
and we are running on a lot of adrenaline, so I'm going to regret that kiss when that wears off.
Adrenaline and alcohol.
Yes.
Lots and lots of alcohol.
Oh man, the hangovers that must have been experienced in this world were
I mean,
intense.
most of the townspeople were probably fine, but...
Not her.
Oh no, she was probably dying on the inside.
Yes. So I'm an A-. Where are you at, Sam?
Probably a B.
A B?
A B I consider something I would go watch in theaters, and I would think about buying it.
Fair. All right. Do the honors.
This movie starts off with some dude cleaning the deck of a boat when a shooting star lands in the water nearby. Not long after, we see the captain of the boat hailing the Coast Guard, saying they're responding to a distress flare, when our original guy says he doesn't think it was a flare.
So I'm guessing he didn't make a wish.
Oh, well, I mean, he was, mopping the rain.
How bad would you feel if in the last moments before you died, you're like, man, I wish I was off this boat, and then a giant monster comes and sucks your boss off?
Well, it's kind of one of those,
Oh, that's what she said.
It's kind of one of those, genie moments where you wish to be off the boat. Well, got you. Yeah, not long after, we see the captain of the boat hailing the Coast Guard, stating that they're responding to a distress flare when our original guy says he doesn't think it was a flare. Then one of the guys on deck starts screaming and everyone runs out to see what's going on. When they get to the outside, the guy has disappeared, and I can't tell if they find goo or blood, because it's really dark, on the other side of the boat.
I always just thought that was ship goo, but clearly not. Sometimes I don't pay
It's
great
really hard to
attention.
tell because he kind of touches it and looks at it, but he doesn't do the two fingers and then
The classic movie monster
yeah
goo move.
goo yeah. So it's hard to tell what exactly it is.
People be bold. I don't touch goo like that.
Right? People. I mean, I get on a boat you kind of know everything that's been there, but if you see a substance you don't know what it is, my first reflex isn't to
put my hand in it.
Let me touch it and then make it get it really close to my face.
It just seems like a really good way to end up with a chemical burn.
I saw it. On the other side of the boat, another guy gets snatched off the boat. During this scene, we can hear the Coast Guard over the radio stating they have dispatched a unit to their location, please respond. Our original guy, rightfully panicking, grabs an axe off the wall and walks outside. We've discussed how an axe is probably not the best weapon when you're in really close quarters.
No, because you have to have enough room and enough time to be able to swing an axe back. If it hits bone, it's gonna get stuck, which means that you are probably more than likely not going to be able to swing it back a second time. And if you're fighting, I don't know, an aggressive alien creature that doesn't have the same kind of anatomy as we do, that's probably not going to save you. It's probably just going to make you a really easy target.
Well, it takes 2 seconds to depending on how far, when you're in such close quarters, you don't have room to maneuver something that big. It's not worth using. You'd better off with a knife because you can probably do more damage that way.
Really, all in all, if you have no other options, it's okay. But it's not great.
Yeah, when you're on a tiny boat, there's probably better things to use. Once he gets the axe, he walks outside. We hear what I can only describe as squelching and a low roar before he screams, and it cuts to the title screen. Next, we have two scenes, one with a guy waking up holding a liquor bottle, and then it quickly cuts to a woman on a boat wearing a coat with the word Garda on it. We looked up what that means because we're not from Ireland. And Garda are the National Police Service of Ireland. Garda, I'm going to say this wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
Síochána? Szechuana? Something like that. It means Guardians of the Peace or the Guards.
There was actually a couple moments in this movie where we had to look up the dialect because we both speak English, but we don't use the words the same.
Yeah, like crack.
Yes.
It means like a really big party.
A good time.
A good time. Yeah.
Which here, if you tell somebody you're chasing the crack, they're gonna assume you're looking for drugs. Hard drugs, too.
Yeah, like you want something.
You do want a party, just a different kind of party.
Yeah.
So there are a couple moments like that where we had to Google it because it's not the same words.
We're not from Ireland. We don't know their slang.
Not been to Ireland either, but someday, maybe.
Lots of scenery and empty alcohol containers later, we see the boat coming into port. Lots of people board and disembark, and it cuts to a sign saying, "Welcome to Erin Island." We get introduced to our two protagonists, Garda Lisa Nolan and Garda Tyrone O'Shea. Lisa walks up to O'Shea's truck and proceeds to enthusiastically introduce herself, and he tells her to get in. It cuts to another scene with an old man walking his dog down by the beach. And when he crests the hill down to the beachfront, he sees a bunch of dead seals on the beach. These are not actually seals, they're actually sharks. I'll find that out later, though. Back at the police station, we meet Sergeant...
Wait, did you think they were seals?
I really thought they were seals. They look like seals. Because they don't zoom in on them.
They're not sharks either, they're pilot whales.
Okay, you're probably right. But yeah, I thought they were seals at first. And eventually they talk about what they actually are. I wrote it down wherever that is, though. But yeah, I don't even know what a pilot whale is, so it's like a dolphin.
Yeah, it's just a kind of whale. They're smaller a little bit than most whales. They do occasionally, unfortunately, one of them will wash up and then call the others, and they'll all wash up and die horrible, tragic deaths.
So they bait their friends to death?
Kind of, yeah.
That's unfortunate.
It's an unfortunate thing that nobody's really quite sure why that happens with their particular species, but no, those are pilot whales.
There's always one idiot in the pod that just just baits everyone else out.
Sometimes they can be saved, but the unfortunate thing with pilot whales is a lot of the time they'll put them back in the water and they'll come back.
Oh, wow. They're really dumb.
So they do their best, but sometimes they don't get saved.
That's unfortunate.
Sad. It's really sad. It's really tragic.
Back at the police station, we meet Sergeant Kinfick. I'm not Irish.
There's going to be people on the other end of this screaming somewhere.
Right? How to properly pronounce this. Kinfick introduces himself to Lisa and lets her know with most of the island heading away this weekend, it should be pretty quiet. O'Shea pulls Kinfick aside, asking is it really necessary to bring in someone to cover for him while he's gone? It's only 2 weeks. Kinfick quietly reprimands him, saying he knows O'Shea could handle it, but he wouldn't, so he drops it. Back on the pier, we see two fishermen, Patty and Tag, bringing up a couple crab traps with some kind of creature in the one Patty brought up. When Tag goes to see what it is, it pisses in his face.
It spits on him or something. He gets a face full of...
Yeah, it squirts on him. It cuts to Lisa and O'Shea.
What?
It cuts to Lisa and O'Shea talking in the car while they drive. Lisa's explaining why she decided to take this assignment. Drugs, mugging, murders, and rape are apparently the norm where she's from. O'Shea assures her none of that will happen around here. Lisa drops the line here, it's always the small places where mad shit happens. Lisa and O'Shea make it to the beach to investigate the beached seals, and we get introduced to our island doctor/scientist, Dr. Adam Smith, who is currently taking samples. He's a marine ecologist. Dr. Smith kind of does a bit of flirting with Garda Lisa. Eventually they get to why the whales are all beached, and he said they all died at sea and washed ashore. Pilot whales. This is where I found out they're pilot whales. Lisa and O'Shea head to a construction site, and as Lisa gets out of the car, she gets catcalled, whistled at. She immediately takes out a notepad and asks what the guy's name is. Like she's going to write him up. His name is Tomislav Wojciechowski. As soon as she hears that, she gives up and just says, carry on. Which fair. They cut over to Patty, who's wearing a welding mask and putting his crab trap in the water while it's making all kinds of weird sounds. And back at the construction site, O'Shea is talking to Connie, who I can only assume is the foreman or the owner of whatever they got going on, and is asking about borrowing some manpower to move the dead pilot whales off the beach. We see a brief scene of the construction crew moving some of the whales. One guy gets asked to go grab the last bit of equipment, and he sees what looks like eggs on the beach. After completely pulling it out of the sand, he gets knocked to his feet and dragged across the beach into the water.
Once again, a life lesson. Don't touch random eggs when you don't know where they come from.
Well, to be fair, he didn't know what it was. It looks just like a glowing rock. And he's like, what the fuck is this?
You know what? I'm going to stand by that too. Don't touch glowing rocks if you don't know where they come from. Don't touch substances. This is, you know what? The whole Aliens movie set this premise.
Like, keep your hands to yourself.
Really, it does you guys a lot of good.
Yeah.
Cooney, after waiting for Daly to come back with the equipment, heads back out to the beach to figure out where he went. He starts walking the beach looking for him. At the local bar / inn, Patty and O'Shea are drinking, and Lisa walks in and asks for the bartender for an iron. She's clearly staying here for 2 weeks that she's working. It gets a little awkward with everyone standing around while she's waiting for the iron. After she gets the iron and walks away, Una, the other bar owner, tells O'Shea she had a twinkle in her eye for him. Brian tells her she doesn't know what she's talking about, and then Una roasts him, telling everyone her family thought she was mad for waiting for him, apparently for 8 years to propose to her. He doesn't know anything. Patty tells him... I mean, it's accurate. Like,
I don't know that I would have waited 8 years.
I don't think... No, I won't say most people, because there's tons of people who do. There's funny stories about people who waited 8 years to hear the proposal, but what I hear more often is someone's in a relationship for like 7 to 8 years, get out of it, and then immediately get married.
What you hear a lot of, too, is people who've been like dating for 10, 12 years, they get married and they're divorced 2 months later.
Yep, very common.
Patty tells O'Shea he knows a secret and asks him if he wants to know. After a little back and forth, O'Shea says, sure, tell me. Patty claims to have caught a sea monster. O'Shea rolls his eyes, gets up, and leaves.
I think it's important to note that Patty is very drunk in this conversation.
Oh, no, for the record, Patty is drunk the whole movie.
Sauced.
At all times.
The whole time.
My man has liquor in his veins. That's how drunk he is.
He'd be flammable walking around.
Mm-hmm. It cuts to Tag and his wife, Irene. Irene is drying her hair when Tag hears someone knocking at the door. And instead of getting up, he yells at Irene, who's in the bathroom in a robe, to go get the door. Eventually, he gives in and checks the door himself. He looks at the peephole and sees Cooney, and for some reason thinks he's angry. He opens the door, and Cooney is literally hanging from something and swinging back and forth. And Tack doesn't seem to realize this.
He's also like he looks dead. He's very pale.
Instead of being terrified like he should be, he just looks baffled. Until he lifts up in the air and then falls. Tag, like an idiot, runs outside to see what happened. He gets yoinked up into the air, and his wife, equally as dumb, runs outside. She quickly realizes, though, that this is a bad idea and runs back inside. She can hear her husband being dragged around the top of the house. He's also screaming, asking for Irene to help. She eventually closes herself in a room.
What was she gonna do?
I don't fucking know. She eventually closes herself in a room, but realizes that the fireplace / chimney is still open. She reaches in and tries to close the hatch, but gets yanked right out of her slippers.
Yeah, she tries to close the flume, but she can't get to the lever.
Yeah.
Which I empathize with. We grew up in Florida. There's no basements and there's no chimneys in Florida. Unless you live in some sort of odd, ridiculous mansion. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's too hot and it's too damp. You just can't really have either. So when we first moved up here into the mountains of Arizona, and my mom had an old school wood burning fireplace, and we had to learn about
how to properly clean and take
all
care
of that stuff.
I still don't know any of that stuff.
It was a learning curve. I also would have been eaten by the sea monster in that
Electric
way.
fireplace all the time. It's the way.
Although when we do eventually see the sea monster, it's really big, so I don't know that it would have been able to really truly get through. You know what I mean?
No, but it has tentacles that can easily reach through.
That's the moment when the axe would have come in handy.
You're right. Well, I mean, in a house, in a living room, there's plenty of room to swing.
Or, you know what this also says? You should just always have a fire burning.
Yeah.
Then nothing can come down the chimney.
True. It was raining, though, and I don't think, because of how their fireplace works, you can't really...
No, you can.
Won't it just, I don't know, get wet and they don't put out the fire?
No, there should have been some sort of
like
cap.
a shielding? Oh, okay.
There's usually a cap on top of some sort that stops any rain and
birds.
It
shows you how little I know about fireplaces.
Usually it stops any rain and hopefully birds from getting in or out.
Yeah.
And then...
We cut to O'Shea, who's heading upstairs of the inn while downing the rest of his flask. He knocks on Lisa's in-room door. After she answers, he asks her to head down for a drink. And she declines, saying she has to work tomorrow, to which he chuckles.
He definitely, drunk in him, showed up thinking he was going to get some tail.
Or at least try.
Yeah.
He tells her it doesn't matter out here. No one's checking up on you. She tells him he's drunk and asks him to say the alphabet backwards. He fails. Then she says, I hope you're not driving, which he answers, I'm riding a horse. She raises an eyebrow and says, you're riding a horse, drunk. And he claps back, the horse isn't drunk. He stumbles over her nightstand and he apologizes, and she tells him, "Let's get you to bed." He then immediately passes out.
We laugh, but we absolutely live in a place where people do that and actually get DUIs on horses. The cops don't care that the horses still
Horses, bicycles, people get pulled over for any kind of transportation out here.
DUI sickles.
The DUI sickles.
Which is the local joke here, that if you see somebody riding on a bicycle, it's a DUI sickle.
They got their license yanked.
Yeah, we don't have sidewalks, we don't have bike lanes. A lot of our roads are narrow and primitive and not well maintained.
They're not bike friendly.
They really, really aren't. So we don't have a strong bicycle fitness community.
Nope. Back with Patty, who was back home checking on his sea monster, he notices it's out of the cage. And the walls have this like goo on them, and he gets attacked by this tentacle monster that he sees in the top corner of the room.
That's our first look at it, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, we can kind of see it in the cage when Patty and Tag are looking at it.
Yeah, but this is our first, like, good look at it.
Yeah. It uses its tongue/stinger thing to suck his blood and jump on his face. He pulls it off and stomps the shit out of it. The next morning, we see Lisa waking O'Shea up in a prison cell. She tells him she didn't know where his home was, so she dropped him off here. Lisa then gets a phone call, and we cut to Lisa and O'Shea walking with Patty while he starts rambling about getting a finder's fee. They walk into Dr. Smith's lab, who's examining the creature that Patty stomped out. When they ask him what it is, Patty insists it's a grabber. He claims he found it, so he gets to name it. Smith, on the other hand, has no clue what it is. He pulls out its tongue and shows that it's super long and has a barb. He theorizes that it sucks the blood from its prey. He scrapes some of the mucus and it shimmers. He thinks it doesn't need anything to live but blood and water. He also claims it's a female, to which the gang wants to know how he knows that. He said, well, it has no testicles. And for more proof, he pulls out an egg and says it was pregnant.
I also just would like to say, though, it did lay an egg in the, little cage thing that Patty had, so okay, I'll take that argument that it's female. But he didn't do, a vivisectomy. He didn't, cut it open or do anything, so he doesn't really know anything about this creature's anatomy.
There's tons of creatures that don't have testicles.
Well, not traditional ones.
Yeah.
There's also a ton, especially ocean creatures, who are both.
Yeah, they can, depending on the circumstances or the environment.
Yeah, sea cucumber. You don't actually know.
Yeah, it's a very big assumption.
It is a very big assumption. I take issue with the scientists being like, it's a girl.
Yeah. Back on the beach, O'Shea spots Cooney's car parked on the beach, abandoned. They search the beach for Cooney and can't find him. They check his trunk and it still has the keys in it. They head up the beach to a house on the coast. They peek into the window and O'Shea awkwardly flirts with Lisa. Lisa then brings up Smith, who seems to have a thing for her. O'Shea isn't super pleased about the way they talk to each other. Lisa notices some of the roof tiles are broken, and on the side of the house, they grab a ladder and check the fabric stuck on the chimney. Lisa smells it and says it smells like that monster. She tries to yank the fabric, which is stuck, and a fucking head falls out of the chimney and onto O'Shea's face. It gets his face bashed in by another face. It's kind of bad.
Yeah, that whole scene was crazy. Can we talk about how crazy it is this monster used another dead body as bait?
Oh, yeah. It was hooked Cooney and swung it around, so O'Shea went out there and then got snatched up.
I also have questions about what happened to Cooney and the wife's head.
Irene? Yeah. Well, it's the same thing that happens later in the movie. It seems to eat the body and it just spits out the head.
Right, so you think they would have found two other heads?
They probably were in the house. Remember, they didn't actually go inside the house. So there's a good chance that the other stuff was inside the house.
She got chucked up the chimney. They're probably just in a tree somewhere being eaten by birds.
Also possible.
Some little kid's gonna come home from vacation. I'm assuming they're on vacation because it looked like a lot of kids were leaving.
Yeah,
on
I think
the ferry.
it was a holiday.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were doing
Some little kid's gonna come back and be traumatized for life.
They cut to O'Shea and Lisa talking to Jim, the town doctor, asking what killed him. The doctor retorts about maybe it's because he's just a head. He rants a bit about if they had a headache or a cold, he could probably do something about it, but he's just a small town doctor. He says all he knows is it looks like he was mauled by something. Patty comes up and brings them to his house. He shows them that something destroyed his bathroom, even threw his tub into the lawn. Lisa and O'Shea are thinking it's possible that there's a male creature running around, seeing as the female would need a male to fertilize the eggs. Lisa is still trying to figure out if it needs water, how can it move about dry land? Patty chimes in with his drunken wisdom. There's no such thing as dry land when it's raining. Lisa mentions it's going to storm tonight. Patty points on the map where he found the female and they go to investigate. Patty points out the exact location where he caught the female and they investigate the cove. They find some clothes of some fishermen just sitting around. Meanwhile, Patty finds more eggs. He digs out one and it starts moving. In the cave, O'Shea yells hello twice to see if anyone is around, and a giant tentacle monitor pops out, and they bolt. They make it out of the cove, and then they think they're safe, but it shoots its tongue out and catches Lisa's hat. They continue running, and they meet up with Patty and keep running. O'Shea calls the Coast Guard, but because the storm's coming in, they can't get out until it passes.
Patty's the best and worst kind of friend to have in any of these situations, because he's the best kind of friend because he's going to survive no matter what. His drunken ass will make it through. He's the worst kind of friend because he's absolutely going to keep a sea monster alien in a cage in his bathtub and be like, my welding mask will save me.
He's that level of crazy.
But he'll survive every time.
They head back to Smith's lab. As soon as they get there, they start to explain everything that's happened and how the big one is trying to find the small one. They're also throwing gas on the small one, and Smith's trying to stop them, but they don't listen and light it on fire, which triggers the sprinklers and gets the small one wet, and it wakes it up. They scramble to turn off the sprinklers. When they finally get it off, they all circle to grab her. It squirts on O'Shea. It goes full face hugger. He stumbles around while they're trying to get it off his face. He starts smacking himself in the face with a club, and then finally gets it off. Eventually, they all manage to get it off, and it spits up something, then collapses. They surround it and smash the shit out of it. After they kill it, they ask Patty how is he still alive. It took 3 people to get it off him. When they asked him what has he been eating, after some terrible jokes, they realized he was just so drunk his blood was toxic. It must have sucked his blood and then passed out. When they come up with a plan, they get the whole island drunk to protect the people. They only have to get through the night, and they can let the Coast Guard handle the rest. So they want to convince the whole town to come to the local bar and get drunk. They convince Brian, the bar owner, to help with the plan. Una, his wife, walks in on them while they're planning, and they try to play it off like it's nothing. After she walks away, Brian sighs and explains it's her birthday next week, so now she thinks they're all planning something for her.
You would have to, though. Can you even imagine after all this came out?
Oh, yeah.
She's like, you son of a bitch. Not only were you not planning my birthday party and you gave away all our booze for free, but now we live in a town full of sea monsters.
Yep.
I'd be moving to Arizona so fast. Not only is there no ocean, but it's really hot and dry. No sea monsters making it here.
Yeah. They huddle up and decide who's going to stay sober so they can have at least one person to maintain order. O'Shea volunteers, and Lisa argues she couldn't handle Patty levels of drunk anyways, so she should be the sober person. O'Shea convinces her that he should do it since he knows the people and the island better. Yeah, Smith interrupts saying that they're going to need a blood sample from someone to determine alcohol levels, and he chooses Lisa since she's the fittest person there. They get Lisa wasted, and she starts ranting about her father loved her sister more than her. She then just starts love-bombing everyone. Lisa's a spilly, happy drunk.
Yeah. At least she's not a crying drunk, though. I have a friend who I will not name who because I love them to death, but 2 beers in, and they are just bawling their eyes out every time.
I think we all have at least one friend like that.
I'll take that over angry drunk, but sad drunk is sometimes hard.
I have a friend who will also go unnamed who likes to fight inanimate objects when he's drunk. If you're listening, you know who you are.
That friend is a puker, too.
Yes.
That friend has his own bucket when we hang out. We'll be like, hey, this is your bucket, and I swear to God, if you miss the bucket, we will have words in the morning. Hold on to your bucket.
Patty pulls out his homebrew, and Lisa takes a sip and immediately falls over. They take her blood to do a test, and they feed the blood to the grabber and watch how it reacts.
It's sort of like...
Oh, it starts.
It sort of like seizes up.
Yeah, it starts shivering and then dies.
Which, I don't know if they, like... I feel like you should have done this in a tier type thing. Like, we're going to give you 2 beers and then see what the grabber does.
So you could figure out, like, what is the actual level, not just give it the highest dosage
exactly.
from the get-go.
Because you maybe you don't need quite that.
Yeah,
maybe she didn't have to drink what I'm going to assume is some, like, bathtub moonshine because it's clear.
Oh, yeah. It's deadly. It's basically... Well, it's a lighter fluid.
Yeah, it looks like it was made with Everclear for sure.
It starts shivering and then dies. They have her breathe in a breathalyzer to see what her BAC is, and it's a 0.2. They head to the church where the whole town is, apparently, and announce that Brian is having a party, and everyone's invited. Una asks, why are you having a party? And Lisa says, it's a welcome party. She points out, but you leave in a week. And she says then, it's a goodbye party. Una won't let it go. And everyone tries to leave, but Lisa stops everyone and says she's going to arrest anyone who doesn't come. No one is interested, so O'Shea says it's a free bar, and everyone changes their tune very quickly. Even the father gets excited, and they all head there.
Even the priest is all in.
Yeah. The whole town parties hard while the gang is in the back trying to figure out what weapons they have. TLDR, they have shit weapons. Except for maybe the flare gun.
And you know what? No. The super soaker that he filled with lighter fluid was a great weapon, but I wouldn't have put lighter fluid in it. I would have put alcohol in it.
Right?
I think that was a missed opportunity for a very funny moment. Because they all pull out their weapons, and there's one guy who's got like a kid, like an 8-year-old super soaker toy gun.
And so Brian walks in with a pump action twin jet super soaker that shoots 20 feet.
I took your thunder. The only bad thing about those is you do have to like pump them up, and I can't imagine facing down a gigantic sea monster and doing the quick like little. There was a missed moment of very funny that could have happened there.
Right.
Well, if you used your like super soaker, your water guns too much, they like. I've never had one that didn't have the little mechanism that got jammed.
Well, it gets corroded too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's similar to the moment in Eight-Legged Freaks where the best weapon is the bottle of perfume.
Oh, yeah.
The best weapon is the super soaker.
At first, everyone kind of laughs and are like, it's a water pistol. Like, what are you going to do with that? But then he says, it's only a water pistol if you put water in it. If you put lighter fluid in it, you can light it on fire.
Which I feel like is a lesson to be learned in case of the apocalypse. Get creative, people.
Right? Do what you got to do.
It's only that if you're not creative with it.
Yeah. O'Shea tells everyone to get drunk and don't let anyone leave. They all take a shot and then head inside. Back to everyone drinking nonstop. Lisa and O'Shea, for some reason, are in the car talking and flirting. Back inside, Smith's heading to one of the back rooms and drinks some of Patty's homebrew and essentially almost dies. The doctor heads out back to find somewhere to pee because the bathrooms are all taken. O'Shea has a bit of a heart-to-heart with Lisa about working so hard. She opens up to him a bit and then mentions she's sorry about his wife. Una told her how she died. O'Shea tells her she didn't actually die, they just didn't work out. She's a bit embarrassed but asks did they split up because he was drinking? And he tells her he didn't drink back then. She just met someone else. The doctor, who's just taken a pee, walks back out to a bunch of tiny slug monsters walking up to him. One of them jumps on his face and O'Shea pulls it off his face while Lisa starts swinging golf clubs around trying to kill as many as she can.
These are really hard to describe, so I'm actually going to put them on our Instagram page if anybody's interested.
They're like sea anemones.
But with teeth?
Yeah, crossed with like a slug. Or, not a slug. Yeah, I guess like a slug, but like open-ended slug. They're like, they move like worms, but they look like sea anemones.
Yeah, they're very unusual looking. Drunk or not, if I saw that, I would run. I would run so fast.
If it was just one, I'd probably just kill it. But there's like...
Just be stomping on it.
Yeah, but there's a ton of them. There's like 20 or 30 of them.
It's safe to assume that this is what the eggs hatch, is these little baby anemone monsters. And I gotta tell you, like, I would just bolt. And if my teenage experiences were any, like, indicator of what adult Lacey can do, I'm a fast runner when I'm drunk. I would run so fast.
Meanwhile, it cuts back and forth with the bar and everyone drinking, and then the giant monster snatches up Jim and damn near eats him whole and spits out his head.
That's the doctor.
Yeah, Jim is the doctor. Lisa says, fuck that, and runs back to the car.
Which, yeah, fair, Lisa.
Right?
That's what drunk Lacey would have done, too.
They try to start the car, but fail, and the monster starts attacking the car. O'Shea turns on the sirens and asks Brian to open the door so they can get back in. It attacks the car, and they run back in. They try to block off the door with a table. Meanwhile, Brian has the super soaker and is yelling to Smith to get the lighter. Light it up. It's go time. Smith is screaming. He can't feel his face, and he's trying to crawl over to Brian. This whole scene's really hilarious. It's just chaos.
It's just drunk people trying to fight a monster while completely inebriated and not in the right frame of mind to do it. I can honestly say, though, I would do no better.
I wouldn't want to be the sober person in this scenario. Because O'Shea's like trying to block the door, and Lisa's like on top of the table, and then Brian and Smith are like trying to light the super soaker. It's all crazy.
Fatal plan here, guys. It is pouring rain in this scene of the movie. So drunk people perhaps don't think plans through all the way.
Yeah. I'll get to this, but it doesn't end well. Smith is screaming he can't feel his face, and he's trying to crawl over to Brian. O'Shea is trying to move the table, and Lisa's trying to get on the table. Brian gets his light and busts open the door and runs out into the rain. So yeah, his light immediately goes out. The monster roars at him, and then they run back inside. O'Shea gets over to leave the kitchen and go back into the bar. Brian checks the taps, and they're all empty, unless they go change the kegs. O'Shea tries to get everyone's attention and move them upstairs, but no one listens. Brian and Patty get into a row, and Smith heads outside, completely trashed, with a camera, saying he needs to take a photo with the monster for National Geographic.
And Facebook.
It's
really the way he slurs it, though. I need a picture for National Geographic and Facebook. It's really funny. He dies tragically, but it's funny up until then.
We don't actually know if he dies.
He got flung pretty fucking
He might have landed in bushes. He got flung towards the forest. He might have landed in the trees. I mean, it's possible. They don't explicitly say he died.
Compression fractures. He's dead.
He might be injured. They might have found him later.
I've never been to Ireland. I will own that. If any Irish people are listening, hello. I'm going to think it looks cold there, though. Probably. So hypothetically, you get flung super far, you crash into bushes, you are absolutely going to have compression fractures. The shock from the cold and rain is going to kill you next. If the impact didn't. He dead. He dead.
O'Shea pleads with him to go back inside. Smith snaps a picture of the monster multiple times, and then he touches it. It smacks him into the night right over the moon. Everyone in the bar is panicking and rushing upstairs. The little creatures get into the first floor of the bar, and O'Shea barricades the door. The big one starts pounding on the downstairs door, and Patty mentions that it's probably following the scent of the female.
I wonder if it could, smell or taste the alcohol on him, and that's why it, bitch slapped him into the beyond.
Probably. It probably has, sensory things in its, tentacles.
Right. Because it sort of, gently, monsterly caresses his face.
Oh, yeah.
And just, woof.
Yeah. He's, trying to, pet it, and it's, touching him with its tentacle, and then smacks him into oblivion.
Which is the problem of being super drunk in this scenario, is that you would just make stupid decisions.
All the time. That's why they had to have one person sober. Because imagine if O'Shea
wasn't sober. It wouldn't be enough.
We really need two people sober here. The big one starts pounding on the downstairs door. Patty mentions that it's probably following the scent of the female, which should be on O'Shea. O'Shea is trying to come up with a plan. Lisa, in a drunken stupor, notices some work boots and thinks about the construction site. She comes up with a plan to get a crane and grab the monster and strain it into the air until morning. O'Shea asks Brian where are the keys to his truck, and they're downstairs on the bar. They decide to send the drunkest person down to get the keys, Lisa. In the meantime, when they come up with a plan to make a dummy of O'Shea to confuse the monster so he can get to the truck.
I don't think they ever do anything with that, though, do they?
They do, but it doesn't really affect anything because Lisa ends up getting the truck and then O'Shea just jumps out the window and jumps
Okay, I was going to say, I don't really think the dummy thing ended up
being important It does technically grab the dummy, but it just chases them afterwards anyways. So.
Just eats that dummy?
Yeah. Lisa goes downstairs and uses a nail gun to staple or nail any of the little slugs that come after her. She finds Patty's homebrew and a lighter and puts it into her jacket. She finds the keys, and just as the big one makes its way into the kitchen, in her panic, she shoots the electrical box, which cuts the power to the building. She trips and lights a curtain on fire, which causes the whole building to light up. Now they're trapped upstairs with all the smoke. O'Shea climbs out of a window when Lisa pulls up in the truck, and he jumps down just in time to dodge the monster who's just about to grab him. The monster rolls after them. They make it to the construction site, and O'Shea heads to the crane while Lisa heads to Cooney's truck. O'Shea dips, ducks, and dodges the monster while trying to get to the crane. He tries to bait the monster near a bunch of barrels, but it uses its tongue to try to get to him instead. Knocks him down from the top of the building he was on and into the pit. He picks up the flare gun and is about to shoot it when Lisa comes up in a bulldozer and pushes the monster off cliff into the dig site. She climbs out of the bulldozer and O'Shea climbs up out of the pit. Just when they're about to celebrate with some of Patty's homebrew, the monster snatches him and pours the brew into the monster's mouth. It flees him away and Lisa grabs the flare gun from him and shoots it at the barrel, which I think would have had oil or something in it, and it explodes. It cuts back to the bar with Brian and Patty joking and laughing about needing another drink. O'Shea and Lisa are walking back into town when Lisa hands O'Shea his flask. He tosses it aside and they talk on their way back, and she decides she's finally going to take some time off. He tells her if she lives here, she could already be at home. They make out, and then they cut to a beach and show the open water. And then it cuts to a host of eggs still in the sand, and the music gets ominous, and then the credits roll. That's it.
We never really see the little monster, and there's a huge size discrepancy here between the female, allegedly, and the male.
The female is probably about the size of an octopus, like a small, tiny octopus. The male is the size of a...
tractor.
Yeah, it's huge. It's the size of a vehicle. It could literally climb on top of a police cruiser and bashing it in from the top. So.
And the way it moves is just crazy. It like rolls over itself.
Yeah, it's doing some like
octopus cannonball is the only thing I can think of to describe it.
Thinking there's a creature. A creature is the best way to describe it. In Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I think it's called like Gora or something.
I have no idea.
Yeah, give me one.
That's not my fandom.
Shumagorath?
Oh yeah, it does kind of look like
that. Yeah, it looks like Shuma except without the eye. It has a mouth on it where the eye is, and it just rolls. That's how Shuma moves too. It just like rolls on his tentacles. It's really creepy.
Yeah. I had some questions during this movie. The main one, I think, is do we know, is it just alcohol that's toxic? Or like, let's say, somebody was smoking a lot of weed.
Oh, like what I guess technically that
or
isn't,
let's say they were taking a lot of like Oxycontin.
Oh, like they were just high?
Or like ecstasy. Or let's say they were actually, instead of chasing crack the good time, they were chasing crack the drug and they were just high on cocaine. Would cocaine-laced blood affect the monster or just make a really fucking high monster?
I'm curious. They don't, I mean, there's no way to really go into it because it's fictional, but yeah, they don't explore any other avenues.
There was a couple moments where I had that thought, where is it anything in your bloodstream that would be toxic or is it purely alcohol? I am going to put some screenshots of some things that we talked about on our social media. If you guys are interested, look us up. We are on Instagram and Facebook and you can see those. Because the little sea anemone demons are pretty funny.
Slug things.
Yeah. And it's a really good movie. So if you're bored, look it up and go ahead and have a fun movie night. If you're interested, we're going to be starting our MonsterVerse Moment in just a minute. But otherwise, we'll see you guys next week. On today's MonsterVerse Moment, we are going to be discussing leeches. I am sure that there is an ocean creature that drinks blood that I could have covered, but to be honest, my first thought, particularly when I saw the little baby grabbers, was leeches. So I decided to just go with that.
It's easy.
There are over 680 different species or types of leeches. Of those, 100 are saltwater, 480 are freshwater, and the rest actually live on land. While many leeches aren't bloodsuckers, they feed on worms, snails, fish eggs, insects, or they act as scavengers and they just eat general pond goo.
I was aware of that.
Yeah, not all of them suck blood. A good bit of them do, though. We're going to be talking about the blood-sucking ones because of the movie that we just watched, and it's just more interesting than the ones that eat on dead stuff and snails. It's just, Blood-sucking leeches are a type of segmented worm found in freshwater environments all over the world. Lakes, ponds, marshes, slow-moving streams. Where we're from as children, usually you found them in like the reedy edges of water.
Yeah, some in like ponds.
But in general, just don't hang out in freshwater a lot because gators. Leeches are not your biggest concern in Florida. We also have pythons. That's a fun new thing that happened, I'd say, around the time I was a teenager, where we got a really bad python invasion. People get them as pets and then they get really big and then they can't take care of them anymore, so they release them into the wild. And
they don't know it's an invasive species.
No, well, in Florida's so warm that they can just kind of survive there, and they have. And so now it's gators and pythons. Yeah. More problematic things.
A little bit.
Anyways, back on the topic at hand. Some leeches can be found in tropical forests or coastal areas. They like places that are warm and wet. Mm-hmm. However, they are found on every continent except Antarctica. While not all leeches feed on blood, a number of species do, including the very well-known Hirudo medicinalis, or the medicinal leech. These leeches are external parasites, meaning they attach to the outside of the host like a fish, amphibian, or human, and feed on its blood. They typically don't harm their host seriously. They do feed on them. And if, like anything, you get too many, or the leech in question who bites you has a sickness, that can make the host creature very ill. A blood-feeding leech uses two suckers, one at the head end, called the anterior sucker, and one at the tail. The head sucker contains tiny sharp teeth, or a muscular proboscis that pierces the skin. As it feeds, the leech releases a cocktail of chemicals through its saliva. These chemicals include an anesthetic to numb the bite so that you don't feel it. It's very polite of them, actually. Anticoagulants like Hirudo to keep the blood flowing, and then enzymes to break down the tissue and help them digest your blood. The leech drinks your blood, often up to 30 minutes or more, until it becomes really fat, sometimes swelling up to 5 times its original size. Afterwards, it detaches, drops off often not needing another meal for weeks, sometimes months, kind of depends on the leech. Gosh, I kind of wish I didn't have to eat that often.
Right?
Life would be more
I
convenient.
would love if I could just eat because it was a social thing, not because I had to.
Right. Why do they eat blood? Well, blood is rich in nutrients and fairly easy to access in us squishy-skinned animals. For a leech, it's a pretty efficient meal, especially when it can be digested so slowly for them. Some leeches can even store blood in special chambers in their bodies to feed off of it gradually, which is gross.
A little bit.
Efficient. A good evolutionary tactic, but gross. Just to have like a blood pocket in your belly that you slowly eat.
Listen, it's just storing it for later.
Just like the idea of it is just like...
Yeah.
So leeches have been used in medicine for hundreds and hundreds of years. In fact, medicinal leeches are still in use today in hospitals all over the world and in various therapies, particularly in reconstructive or plastic surgery. Blood sometimes pools in a reattached body part, which is problematic and will cause the reattachment to fail, especially in smaller body parts with finer blood vessels like your ears or your fingers or your toes. Veins are much harder to reconnect than arteries because they're so little. Leeches can be applied to those areas. They relieve blood congestion and it promotes healing. The anticoagulant in their saliva kind of keeps that blood flowing until your body restores proper circulation and kind of gets those veins back together better. Historically, there was all kinds of uses for leeches. People would actually put them on their temples because they thought that would help relieve headaches. And they are approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, with some pretty strict restrictions because...
You give people too much room and they'll just do whatever.
I could just picture now somebody, and I am admittedly very crunchy, but I'm not this crunchy. Somebody who's crunchy being like, no, this is how we actually treat headaches in this family, and just sticking a leech on their kid's forehead. Like, I could just see it. Okay, so, and on that note, for most people, most healthy people, leeches are really just more annoying than anything else. You go out fishing, you brush up against a reed or a leaf or something, and you get one on you, and you just pick it off.
Yeah, I just can't think of leeches without thinking about the Goonies, and that was my first introduction to leeches.
I don't remember leeches in that movie.
They like have to swim through like a swamp and they get covered in... They don't notice it at first because they're all in clothes. And then one person notices one on someone's arm and they're like, oh my god, check everything. So they strip and they have leeches all over them. And there's one kid who has a leech in his underwear.
You sure that's the Goonies?
I'm like 90% sure.
Goonies takes place in Oregon.
Hold on. Let's YouTube.
There's a really funny scene in Anacondas 2, Hunt for the Blood Orchid. Featuring leeches. We're going to cover that movie eventually, too.
Maybe it's not the Goonies.
I don't think it is. That Goonie was mostly
with...
pirates and ice cream. Teenage sex. A lot of bicycles.
Oh, maybe it was Stand By Me?
That seems more accurate, honey.
Maybe I was mixing those two movies up in my head.
We're going to have to do a rewatch now.
Oh, I think it is this scene. Yeah, this is the one I remember. Oh, yeah.
You know why you probably confuse those two movies? It's because Mouth is in this movie, too.
Yeah.
Corey something or other.
Yeah, that's probably why I mixed it up. But yeah, so I stand corrected. It's Stand By Me, not the Goonies with the leech scene.
I've watched the Goonies a lot. I feel like I would remember that.
Yeah, I was clearly mixing them up in my head.
Okay, so that's disturbing. On the upside, you would just pick it off and his penis probably would have been fine.
Right.
In fact, I think, having not medically tested this, there could be an argument that if you ever had to reattach a penis, maybe they would attach a leech. You know, having learned some things here. So typically, more annoying than truly dangerous. The wound may itch or bleed for a little bit because of the anticoagulants. And there is a very tiny risk of infection if you are a healthy person, if the wound isn't clean, but that can be said for almost anything. I cut my hands today doing yard chores. If I hadn't washed them, those could become infected. Leeches don't typically transit diseases, and they drop off on their own accord once full if you don't discover them and just pick them off. In tropical areas, it is possible to get leeches in unexpected places. I did read this one story about someone who'd accidentally inhaled some water and had gotten some in their nasal passages.
Oh god, that's terrifying.
And they did require a little bit of surgery to get those out, but that's incredibly rare. The biggest risk with that, I guess, was apparently it is possible to then inhale, just the way our anatomy works, to inhale the leech. Or there's one story about someone who got one inside their throat.
Oh god, also terrifying.
Once again, one of those super rare...
Well, like, you can't just throw it up. Because it's going to attach and stay there.
You need a doctor.
Yeah.
You need assistance. But those are really rare, freakish cases. It's like getting a spider in your ear. It just doesn't really happen all that often, thank God. Although I did used to work in an urgent care once upon a time, and occasionally we would have homeless people get palmetto bugs in their ears. And I still sometimes have nightmares about that.
I don't think anyone doesn't know someone who's had that happen.
Palmetto bugs, for anybody who doesn't know, are basically cockroaches with wings, except they're a little bit bigger. They're
fucking terrifying.
They're very common in Florida.
They are fucking terrifying.
They like warm, dry places to sleep.
Yo, regular roaches, I don't give a fuck about. Palmetto bugs? Those things strike fear into people's hearts.
Well, because you go to squish it and it flies.
Nothing's more terrifying than when you go to kill something and it flies on your fucking face. I was thinking that
what
one
was
scene.
That scene from that reality show we were watching where he got hit in the face with a palmetto bug?
I think it was Too Hot to Handle.
Yes.
Yeah, and the dude gets the palmetto bug, flies on his face.
They're having the most serious reality TV producer-driven conversation, and he's trying to be all serious with this girl, and just out of nowhere, wham! Palmetto bug right in the forehead.
And it like takes him a second to realize what's happening, because he didn't see it coming, so he's just like... and then freaks the fuck out.
Okay, but there's no way I could take you seriously if you were confessing something to me and then you got hit in the face by a bug.
Yeah, it's sad.
Leeches can sometimes, even though it's rare, carry viruses and bacteria. HIV and hepatitis B have been isolated from live leeches pulled off some fishermen in Africa. Viruses can remain in a leech up to as long as 5 months because they do digest so slowly, and depending on the kind of species of leech, they have those blood pockets where they store it. So if they were to drink somebody who had an infectious disease in their blood, they could potentially carry that disease for a period of time. There hasn't been a ton of research on and around that, at least none that I could easily find. I don't have subscriptions to medical journals, so there might be something that I just simply couldn't find in a Google search.
Right.
Some studies have shown that malaria is capable of replicating in the red blood cells that a leech ingests, although it doesn't seem like it's capable of residing there for a very, very long time. So hypothetically, if that leech were to fall off and then bite you almost immediately, it could transmit something, but it would have to line up just perfectly. There have been some medicinal leeches who have been found with infectious diseases, but with reports of it like a 2.4% infection rate. There was some infections rate as high as 20%. That wasn't an infection like HIV or hepatitis B. That was more of a bacterial infection in leeches' mouths that can be cured with a course of antibiotics. So that 20% is not like, there's not 20% of people using medicinal leeches getting AIDS, or HIV. There's not 20% of people getting HIV from leeches. This is a bacteria infection from the leech's teeth. They can be treated with antibiotics, although there are some resistant strains that do exist, and that's just seems to be par for the course for anything that can be treated with antibiotics nowadays. We over-treated things, and now we're dealing with mutations and consequences of that. So some doctors, if they use medicinal leeches because of that bacterium, will just go ahead and prescribe like prolific antibiotics and just be like, just in case. They say if you want to remove a leech, you don't yank it like those boys in Stand By Me did, as that can leave mouth parts behind that cause irritation and infection. Instead, you want to pick it off with your fingernail and just kind of pry, or you can apply salt, vinegar, or alcohol to make it released. Alcohol is very toxic to them. Even though they're pretty creepy, they play a very large role in healthy ecosystems. They help maintain populations of certain animals in balance. They are good food for birds, fish, amphibians, etc. They do help in medical situations. Scientists study their nervous systems and saliva compounds to help develop new medicines. They've played a very large role in developing anticoagulants because of their saliva. So, even though they're icky and a little bit gross, very important in the role of science. Let's not mush them out of existence.
Right? They're only really feared because people feel some type of way when blood's involved, because there's such a stigma around it, so.
Also, it's a slimy, gushy thing stuck to you.
Yeah, most people don't like slime.
No. But watching Grabbers, that's kind of what made me think of leeches. I did try to Google.
I see the parallel. It's very close.
Yeah. I did try to Google, if you were super drunk and a leech bit you, what would happen?
Yeah, because it says alcohol's bad for it, right?
It is. And it will make it release, like if you pour it. But I couldn't find anything about what happens if you were to purposefully get wasted as shit and then stick a leech to you.
There's no way they haven't tested that.
Well, I couldn't find it.
Oh,
so if you guys can find it, let me know. But apparently I'm the only one of the only people who's like, well, what would happen if?
But
if you're a grad student and maybe you're looking for an experiment one night,
I'm sure there's some documentation somewhere.
Maybe get your biology buddy wasted and see what happens if you stick a leech on his arm. But it is toxic to them in general. If I was fighting a giant leech monster, I would maybe give it a go. I'd be like, can't hurt. That being said, in the context of grabbers, I don't think you and I would survive. We don't keep enough alcohol in this house.
Well, that would assume that it was coming after us, because we would just stay home, close all the doors, and as long as it hasn't, squirted on us, we're fine. It's not like it was hunting people, but it was looking for the female, because the female squirted. I think we would have been fine.
But those are Leeches. The movie was Grabbers. If you like what you heard, leave us a review. If not, we're not your cup of tea, and that's okay. Or your bottle of Jack. And we'll see you guys later. Bye.